That's another original composition by our own Aaron McGann. Yay. So we have dedicated the month of April to celebrating the earth and the environment and bringing environmental awareness. Part of the reason is we have such a strong earth care ministry, and Marcia Rattan came to our staff meeting and had all these ideas, and they couldn't be contained in one day. So we thought, you know what, let's make the whole month about celebrating the earth. Yes, let's hear it for the earth. So next Sunday is Earth Day, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a history on that. It was founded by Gaylord Nelson, who was a U.S. Senator from Wisconsin. And after witnessing the ravages of the 1969 massive oil spill in Santa Barbara, he decided that there needed to be something that honored the earth and brought awareness to people about these kinds of experiences. He was inspired by the student anti-war movement. For all of you who were around then, you know, that was sort of the hippie thing. It's like, yeah, let's do this. So on April 22nd, 1970, 20 million Americans demonstrated around the country for a healthy, sustainable environment in massive coast-to-coast rallies. Now, when it began, it was like, okay, so maybe that's something that's for the 70s, and that's cool, we'll do that for now. But the truth is, Earth Day has kind of taken on a life of its own, and now it is celebrated, I believe, worldwide, and it becomes more and more important that we take this time and stop and go, okay, so what's going on here? So as we look at the overarching theme for this year, which is who are you called to be, I'd like for us to look at it in the context of who are you called to be as a steward of the earth? Who are you called to be as a member of this planet? Who are you called to be as an expression of this earth? We have many challenges facing our planet today. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know you all know. However, I think it's important that we bring them out. So I chose my top 10, so just kind of stay with it. These are some of the challenges that we're facing right now. So just know that, you know, we live in interesting times, and we're not here by accident. And we are here with this incredible thing that's happening in our world right now for a reason, and we are called to a higher place. So number one is we're experiencing the global destruction of forests. Number two, soil erosion. Number three, the proliferation of nuclear waste hazards and massive amounts of other toxic waste. We have a worldwide shrinking of fresh water. We have a spreading ozone. We have massive extinction of species worldwide. We have flooding of coastal areas worldwide as the ocean levels rise. We have a population explosion, and we have the melting of the ice caps. So that's just a few right there. I wish there was a lighter way for me to bring it to your attention. I always think of the movie Pleasantville, where the teacher is telling the students that only 1 out of 5 of them will probably get a job, and you know they're going to be facing things like global warming and famine and all these things, and then she ends it by saying, okay, who can spell famine? So the question comes up is, how did we get into this predicament? And I think that because these issues are so big, it's very hard to grasp it. Like even when you hear the list, I mean, what do? You just kind of go, huh, you know that, but, and I think that in the same way that it's difficult for us to imagine our own deaths. I mean, even though intellectually we all know that we're mortal beings and we're only here for a limited amount of time, it's very hard to grasp that at a visceral level, isn't it? And it's very hard to get it for our loved ones as well. And it's almost as if we have a denial capacity built in, or we have a We have a system, almost a protection, if you will, for the life force to think, well, yeah, no, that's not ever going to end. And so I think that we are approaching our global crisis in the same way. It's like, well, yeah, that's not really real. You know, that's not really happening. And I remember when a girlfriend of mine had a long bout with cancer, and we all knew she was going to make her transition, and then she was on life support at the end, and I was still surprised when she died. It was like, really? You know, because I thought she was going to wake up and come back, and that's that permanence and that experience of death that is so profound. So how did we find ourselves in this predicament? How did we get into it? And I think that it probably culminated with the Industrial Revolution and the Age of Reason. You know, we kind of got lost in our heads. And then with the spread of the patriarchal religions, we kind of lost touch with the goddess and Gaia and the earth religions. And we looked up to the sky for our God. We looked up to the sky for our inspiration, as opposed to seeing it where it is in both places, up in the sky, all around and on this earth. We took literally the scripture from Genesis, which said, man shall have dominion over the planet, and man shall have dominion over all things. And so we've kind of taken that approach with the earth, where we have felt as if it is ours, and we can do whatever we want to it. And we have lost the I-thou relationship with it, and have taken on an I own this world. So I want to share a little bit of my own story, and I know that I've told parts of it before, but I think it relates to this topic. You know, many know I was born in Chicago, and my father had this belief that there is nothing outside the borders of the city that one could ever need or want, nor is there ever a reason to go outside of the borders, and that included the suburbs. Why would anybody leave Chicago? As a result, we never went on vacations. We never went anywhere. You know, a vacation for us was we went downtown, you know, to see the Chicago River, you know. And as a result, I wasn't really all that connected with what we call nature, certainly not like the Northwest. I lived across the street from the L trains that were always going, clanging over. I used to scream underneath them to try to match the sound, you know. And I had an aversion to flowers, really, because, you know, we didn't have them growing in the yard. We didn't have them around us. And the only time I ever saw them was when I went to a funeral. So to me, it was like flowers, dead bodies, they all connected a little bit. And I remember when I started dating and people would bring me flowers, it'd be like, are you kidding? You know? So when I was 19 or 20, I went to Arizona for spring training, and other than a couple of trips to, you know, Wisconsin, maybe Cincinnati, St. Louis, that was the farthest I'd ever been. And I went on a date with Pete Lecoq for a walk in the desert. He was a rookie with the Cubs then. And I remember walking through the desert, and I asked him, I said, so how did this get here? And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, you know, how did this get here? Because in my mind, what I saw were big trucks pulling up and dumping the sand, more trucks coming in and unloading rocks and setting them around, and more trucks coming in and people planting cactuses and stuff, and that's what I saw. And I said, how did this get here? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, it's just here. And it's like, but how could that be? How could the desert just be here? And he goes, because it is. And he's like, have you never seen a desert? I'm like, no. He goes, you ever seen a mountain? I'm like, no. You ever seen the ocean? No. And in that moment, I felt like I hadn't been alive. And I decided that I needed to get out of Chicago for a while. And so the next year, I ended up on a transcontinental Africa camping trip from North Africa to East Africa, camped out in the Sahara and in the jungle, and saw amazing things. I saw rainbows for the first time, and I saw wild monkeys, and and birds, and all kinds of things that I had never been exposed to before. And I have to say that experience and that catapulting into nature changed me at a very deep level. I was able to see the stars on the Sahara Desert in this amazing place, because the only place I'd actually ever really seen them before was in the planetarium, you know, so at least I knew the constellations from the planetarium. So how does this disconnection affect us? How does it affect us, particularly our children? Well, Rabbi Shumley said that if you don't expose your children to nature, these are some of the consequences that they may face. One is laziness. He says we can become like potted plants, you know, just kind of sitting around. He said there can be a loss of wonder, that we don't see the majesty in nature. There can be a detachment from the pristine and the natural, and gradually a gravitating toward artifice and not knowing how to just be, not knowing just how to be yourself. A lack of appreciation for small things in life, like the beauty of the sun, the beauty of a tree, and a fixation on money. So these are some of the things that can grow out of a disconnection with nature. And the truth is, I think it's this disconnection with nature that has gotten us into the place that we're in. The idea of living in our minds and our heads and going, okay, we have dominion over this planet. We can get it, we can use it for whatever we want and however we want. And that being disconnected from it has led to this experience that we're in. Now, the truth is that the world has a soul. It is called Anima Mundi, and it is not a new idea. Plato came up with this idea a couple thousand years ago. And the Anima Mundi is, in a way, imagine if someone looked at you and all they saw was your physical body. That's all they saw. And they judged you based on your physical body. They saw your physical body, and they didn't see you as a living, breathing, spiritual being. They didn't see you as a living, breathing soul. How would that feel, to be seen by someone else as simply a physical thing? And in some ways, that's how the earth has been viewed. It has been viewed as this physical manifestation, but not necessarily as a living, breathing, live being. Llewellyn Vaughan Lee said this about the Anima Mundi. He said, "It is divine consciousness within matter. And just as we are a physical body with a soul, so is the world a physical body with a soul, and that soul is spiritual essence." Now, what Llewellyn Vaughan Lee goes on to say is that as we connect with the world soul, we connect with nature and synchronicities and, you know, for want of another word, connection, harmony, magic, in a sense, also happens. And so we also have a direct relationship between our soul and the soul of the world. The spark in the individual soul is a spark in the soul of the world. Now, Kahlil Gibran said it in a much more poetic and easier to understand way. He said in his poem on religion, "And if you would know God, be not therefore a solver of riddles." In other words, get out of your head. "Rather, look about you, and you shall see him playing with your children. And look into space, and you shall see her walking in the clouds, outstretching her arms in lightning and descending in the rain. You shall see him smiling in flowers, then rising and waving his hands in the trees." Do you see how his connection to the world is that it is alive, that it is in harmony and in communication with him? And this is the Anima Mundi. This is the world soul. This is what we are awakening to. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir with the Northwest, because I know so many of us here are connected with nature. In fact, I've had so many people go, you know, I'd be there Sunday, but I'm out rock climbing, and I'm out this, and, you know, I get it. And we come together in worship and connecting to the world soul, to the Anima Mundi. Vaughn went on to say that in the moment of crisis, there is always a moment of potential. The gates of grace are open in a way that they were not open before. So, we're in this big crisis. We chose this time to be born. We're not sure how to deal with any of these issues. We're taking our steps. We're following our guidance. And yet, what Llewellyn Vaughan Lee says is that there is a moment of grace, this connection that the earth is not an inanimate object. It is alive. And as we reach out to it, it reaches out to us as well. We connect again to that soul. And so if you think about in your own personal life, all of the challenges that you've had, all of the crucifixion experiences and the losses, has not grace shown up for you in some way or another? Have you ever been in a close call where there's been an accident or an almost accident and something happened to save you at the last minute? Now, I'm not saying that we don't take any responsibility and we don't do anything because we're just going to wait and something's going to show up for us. But I think there is that place of grace and that opening that comes again through the world soul. So my question is, can there be grace? So there's no doubt that there are catastrophic issues that are facing the planet today. And the truth is, we can freeze about it, and we can become overwhelmed, and then we can deny that it's happening. We can pretend that everything is okay. But we need to ask ourselves the question, who are you called to be in this arena? Who are you called to be as a spark in the world soul? Who are you called to be as divine intelligence, which is what we are on this planet, especially when we're under stress? It's amazing the solutions that we can come up with. And we've got our recycling, our restoring, our reusing, our replenishing. We are taking steps by leaps and bounds, and we need to go further. So my prayer for each one of us is to be open to this world soul, to connect to it, to take time every day to be outside and to smell the air and connect with that. You know, last week I was in La Quinta at Tom and Judy's, and Jordan and I hiked in the Joshua Tree National Forest. Well, it's not a forest, it's a desert, sorry, the desert. And the environment was so different from here, where it's raining and it's cloudy, and it was so bright and it was so hot, and it was so beautiful in a different way than it is here in Seattle. And as we hiked, you know, we found there was a big old turtle sitting under a rock somewhere, just sitting there, and you just think, God, how old is he, and how long has he been sitting there, and how amazing to just run into him walking along a path. This world is so filled with beauty, it's so filled with wonder, and we are here as its caretakers. We are here as its stewards. We are here as its divine intelligence, and we need to interact with that. The truth is, when I look back on my life in Chicago, there was plenty of nature everywhere. It was in the wind and the strong wind, and it was in that great, beautiful Lake Michigan. It was always all around us, and it's always all around us now, whether it comes in the form of your cat and dog or the squirrels out in your yard, the flowers that you're planting. Gibran said, "Forget not that the earth delights to feel your bare feet, and the wind longs to play with your hair." There's a connection, there's a movement, there's an interaction, there's a love, there's a dance that's happening between us and this planet. So when we think about what is mine to do, I think we reflect on the words of the song that Aaron sang for us. It's these hands. These hands can build a road. They can hold a baby. They can move a mountain. They can change the world, because these are the hands of God, and these are the hands of the earth. Happy Earth Day.